Welcome back to Let's Talk. Every time I'm down in South Carolina at Charleston doing workshops, I tell myself I want to get down to Folly Beach for the sunset or the sunrise. Well, oftentimes the seminars run so long I don't get that chance. But in December, on the 16th, on a Saturday, I finished up a bit earlier and headed down to Folly Beach at sunset. This is one of the finished images from that day. And there's some things I want to call your attention to. Number one, notice that the sun is in starburst, that the actual center of the sun is very circular. Notice how much color I have throughout the horizon. And the tapering of the color across the sand is excellent. I was even able to capture footprints along the way. One of the tools that I use when I'm in the field is an application called Sun Server Lite. It's available for Android and for Apple. I use Sun Server Lite because it tells me exactly what I need to know from a technical perspective about the sun. Here, for example, are some screenshots from their website. While these screenshots are for New York in 2014, they apply wherever you happen to be. And the area that I was most interested in was right here, particularly the golden hour. The blue hour would have been far too late, since the blue hour occurs after sunset, for me to get what I wanted. I knew when I checked Sun Server Lite that I had approximately 1 hour to get what I wanted. However, truth be told, it'll be about the last 15 minutes when I'm going to get the sun directly down above the horizon for the kind of drama that I wanted in that photograph. There's been a lot of talk about a workflow, how to build one, why you should have one. But I'd like to talk about other aspects that far exceed workflow, which is essentially only about post-processing. I want to think about, or have you think about, the fact that there's a lot more to creating an image than simply pointing and shooting. And I know that we all, when we pick up the camera, are focused on the moment. But I'd like you to think about, what do you think about when the camera is in your hand? Are you a point and shoot kind of guy, or do you tend to be more of the Ansel Adams? Deliberate, wait for the right moment, in his case for days or hours, to get exactly what you want. Look, I've been in situations, in fact, very early in my career, most of the time I just looked and shot. That was the extent of my preparation. Make sure there was a battery in my digital camera, make sure I had a memory card, and off I went. As much as photography is about being in the moment, it's also about mastering the experience. And when we talk about mastering the experience, we're talking about all of the technology and all the prep work that goes into creating an emotionally moving images. Emotionally moving images don't just happen. They can, but most of the time, unless that one in a lifetime moment presents itself, it's about creating an intentional environment in which an emotionally powerful image is created. Creating, mastering requires thought, patience, and the right gear. So I knew that by the time I got to Folly Beach, I would be in that last half hour. I needed to make sure I could get to the place I wanted to be to get the emotional effect I wanted in the final image. That means that I needed to think before I got to the beach about how I was going to set up my camera, what the technical challenges were going to be. And we see some of those here in the space marked by the sun, essentially the area marked by the yellow. I knew I would have my biggest problem. Typically, if I didn't handle this right, most of this area would be nothing but white. That could either spill over into the sandy area here, or the sand would be so black it would be pointless. Similarly, I wanted to pick up as much detail of the sand as I could. I also didn't want the other problem I often have when I photograph a sunset, and that is the complete loss of detail on this dead tree. So, going in, I had to think about what kind of gear that I would want to use in order to prevent these problems from happening. Experience is a great teacher, and I've been at this for over 15 years now. I've photographed a lot of sunsets. Experience has taught me that when I'm facing a sunset, particularly in those last 15 minutes, when the sun is right in front of me, there isn't much time. I need to underexpose. And I need to use at least one neutral density filter. This time, I used two. Why? Well, part of it was experience. But first of all, I wanted to make sure that I captured the sharp line of the horizon. I also wanted to make sure that I protected that third of the sand, and I wanted to make sure I captured the detail of the tree. That would not have been possible with one ND filter. The two that I used were both rectangular, both gradient, which means they went from very, very dark to clear glass, or graduated as they are often called. One called an H, which has a very sharp end to the neutral density area, and the other one, which is called an S, that does not. There is no sharp edge. I placed the S closest to the lens. This I knew would protect the sand. And in fact, I placed it in such a way that it covered nearly 1/2 of the sand, more than I needed to. The other one, with the sharper edge, I placed over the top. I also placed it in such a way on my lens that it would match the hard edge with the horizon. How did I know? Well, experience is a great teacher. And that was my primary method for coming to terms with what I would face. At the end of a shoot, there's always questions I ask myself. What have I learned? What would I change the next time? And is there a better way to do this? These three questions, coupled with my experience, allowed me to capture the images I needed and wanted on Folly Beach. Keep in mind, again, that as I pulled into the parking lot, I knew I had very little time. It was also extremely cold that day. I had laid out my equipment in my camera bag so that as soon as I got to Folly Beach, the most time I would spend on gear was involved in putting my tripod together, and once my tripod was together, attaching the neutral density filter holder. In short, within about 5 minutes' time, I was on the beach. The only change I would have made going forward, and when I talk about is there a better way and what would I change the next time, is that I would make sure I got to Folly Beach even earlier. Even if I had to stand there in the cold with my neutral density filter holder and filters in place and my tripod already put together, I would have done that. I think this time I cut it a bit close. I want to thank you for being with us today. My name is Falcon. You can reach out to us at any time, either by going to the website, NyghtFalcon.com, by going to nightvision.com, our magazine site, or you can email me directly at inspiration@nightfalcon.com. Again, thanks for coming, and I look forward to talking to you next time. If you want to contact us, we can be reached at NyghtFalcon.com or our magazine site, nightvision.com. And if you want to email me directly, you can reach me at inspiration@NyghtFalcon.com.